Hello there. Today we are going to have a conversation about how seeing reality through imagination can create narratives. And we're going to talk about how we created the most viral video of the Spanish influencer María Pombo and the nail polish brand Neo Nail, and how we did the same to create our iconic character, Nonna Giada. So, Blanca, I have a question for you today. I
Tell
would
me.
like to know how, before creating the foyer, you thought of imagination and how it changed now that you've been working for over 4 years in this company with a very clear purpose that it's see reality through imagination.
I love that question. Um, I think my answer is before I worked at the foyer, I saw imagination as something to evade from reality. I'm a Pisces, so I'm quite dreamy. And I recall that since I was a very little girl, we used to make very long trips by car, together, the two of us. And I recall spending a lot of hours just staring through the window and creating like my stories in my head of the things that I wanted to achieve, of potential scenarios that were happening in my life. And I spend a lot of time doing that, which is actually something that I kind of miss because now we have a lot of inputs, so you don't have that much time to just like contemplate and create stories in your mind. But that's how I saw it at that point. So because my daily life was more rooted in reality, probably,
Yeah.
I used it as a form of evasion. And now my conception is completely different. I think like both things, reality and imagination, are kind of mixed up a little bit, more and more every day, especially with the new facets of the fire. But yeah, I think that's how it changed, which I guess is very different for you, or not.
I don't know if I'm honest. What I do identify myself with is that I miss this daydreaming. I think that we are, well,
Daydreaming.
I was born in the late 80s and you were born in the 90s, but
Yeah.
I think that we belong to two generations that dreamt a lot. Romantic comedies, um, books. Obviously, being creative people, as you were saying, we really need this fuel of just daydreaming and thinking of potential scenarios and so on. But I do feel that I miss those days in which I dreamt all the time. And I am a person, probably because I'm a Leo, I love love and the idea of love and the idea of being a passionate person in this world and just living stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that when we created Maria Pombo's campaign, actually, it appeared because of that. So
Yeah.
the idea of this campaign that we created called En que piensan los papines, which means what do daddies think, um, it, it was ignited by us missing rom-coms.
100%. Yeah, I remember we had this conversation a lot throughout the last years.
Yeah,
Um, it was like us both sharing and saying that all the romantic comedies that we used to watch at home with our parents during the 90s and early 2000s, we really liked them. And actually, the scripts were so good.
yeah,
And also the Nancy Mayer movies and all the aesthetics of the houses
right.
that they happen in and so on. Um, but then it came a day when there were no more rom coms being like created recently. It's something shifted,
Yeah,
and I remember us like digging into it and trying to understand what happened. And I recall that you told me like I've been digging in on it, and I discovered that apparently, basically because of algorithms, because people were very much into thrillers and not that much into rom coms anymore, the good or the best script writers had turned into thrillers, and then there were no more good rom coms. And then we were like, let's go back to the 90s and
yeah.
watch them all again. So that's something that we did together.
I remember that I spent a weekend watching a lot of rom coms, and then Monday morning I told you I really loved every rom-com I've watched this weekend, and you told me I've been doing just
The
the
same.
same. And so I remember that we spoke and we said, hey, why don't we bring this mega famous Spanish influencer life into somehow a little world of reality mixed with imagination, so that people would not know if this is a real thing or something that is staged. And so when they called us to work with us for this creative campaign, at that point I thought this is a bit risky,
Yeah.
because obviously it's like a person who shows a lot her life publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And what we are going to propose here is the contrary, is to script her life in a very natural way, but that so the product is very immersed in a sitcom.
Exactly. I think that there was a point of weirdness in what we did, because you, like, people who received it didn't really know whether it was real or not. And I think that was the fun part of creating an ad that never actually seemed like an ad, but was actually reminding you of the rom-com. So it was like a weird mix of
Yeah.
reality and imagination, like literally.
But this is something that we do naturally.
Yeah.
Like, I think that we are two people who enjoy the blurriness of reality and fiction,
Yeah.
because there's this liminal space again,
Mhm.
in which there are a lot of possibilities. Like, if you can dream, you can drive there. If you don't spot, if you don't envision like the idea, how are you gonna get there?
Yeah.
And so it was really cool when we mixed these rom-coms with a nail polish
Yeah.
and an influencer. And the way it happened, well, it turned out to be María Pombo's most commented and appreciated campaign. It went viral. We were told that the sales were crazy, and everyone spotted the fact of it being a creative
Yeah.
piece. And it had something to do with the 90s, obviously, because of the movie that.
I mean, I think now that you're like, while you were talking, I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of creativity in finding new ways to approach reality. And by this I mean, so when we decided to create this campaign, we were actually basing our idea on something real, which was rom-coms are not out there anymore. And we understood that there was a feeling in us that was, we missed this, so we trusted our intuition there again. And we said, okay, so if we're feeling like this, there must be other people from our generation and our parents' generation that are kind of feeling the same. And then we used let's say, a data from reality and created a twist that came from fiction and imagination. So there's always stuff that you can bring in from reality and then give it that twist of creativity and imagination, and then something completely different comes up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the magic of creativity and the work that we do.
Yeah, I think that the blurriness between these two worlds, because there are two worlds, right?
Yeah.
Both in our head, obviously, because like our reality is here, but then what is happening at the same time here can be something completely different. And I really appreciated also the fact that it was, as you were saying, a universal feeling. People were like, yeah, we did enjoy sitcoms. I mean, I loved Friends, for example. I used to watch it every day. And it really, those scripts were so well written that they really gave me food for thought all the time. And with this campaign, we also created something that it was unexpected, but it was very strategic, obviously, which was that probably parents, dads, would have never talked about nail polish.
No.
And all of a sudden, since it was about what her dad thought of the colors of those nail polishes, it created this generational bridge that was super interesting. And everything was based on this movie with Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt.
what women want.
What women want. And well, we recommend you to watch it if you haven't
Yeah.
watched the spot or the movie. And right now we are actually doing the same with our own brand.
Yep.
We were both really interested in understanding the generations of women that came before us in our family. And so the creation of our first iconic character, Giada Maria Corsini, or Nonna Giada, comes from that. Like going back to her albums, the stories that we know about her, trying to contact people who knew her, but at the same time, there's a gap, and using narrative to, to go to the voids and be like, wait, maybe this is what happened. What was she living that she reacted that way? Why was she wearing this? This is really, really cool, and it's only possible if you mix reality with imagination.
Yeah, it's kind of a lens. And
Yeah.
we've talked about this so many times that seeing reality through imagination, which is our purpose, as you were saying, is also the way we approach the things that happen around us, and also the way we work somehow.
Yeah.
And I've told you that recently, ever since we started creating Giada Maria Corsini's story, I've been having like a highest blur between what's real and what's not about our own grandmother. So it's crazy because on the one hand, I felt an urge to know a lot more about her, because there's not that much that I know about her. She passed away when I was very young.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of question marks that I have around her personality. And also, I told you the other day that I had quite a mystical, magical situation that had never happened to me before. Some weeks ago, we went to watch a movie that we really liked, by the way, Sentimental Value. And we were watching the movie, and there's a part about like having deeper conversations about family matters and so on and so forth. And when I left the cinema, I had the need to talk to my grandmother, which is something weird because we never had that close of a relationship, because I was, as I said, young when she passed away. And then when I left, I didn't tell you anything, and I went straight home. And I was thinking on my way, like, I have to talk to her inside my room, like not in the salon, not in the kitchen. It has to be inside my room. And it was crazy because when I got home, the light of my room was lit, and I felt like it was like a sign of her telling me that she was actually there to listen to me. And I found myself doing something very weird that I had never done before, which is I literally lit a candle and spoke to her. And it was really calming for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like something that, I don't know, I had a conversation about certain things that I wanted to talk to her about, that I thought that her wisdom and knowledge could help me with. And it was something very, very nice. It can be pictured as like creepy, maybe, but for me it was super calming and, I don't know, and loving,
I
I'd
don't
say.
think it's creepy. I think it's just like an information that it's out there.
Yeah.
And that if you are connected with yourself, you're open to receive it. And that's only information.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't think it's creepy. I think it's more like layers of your life that are unraveling somehow.
Unfolding. Yeah, you know, I'm sometimes more skeptical with these things than you are, and maybe I'm judging it from the outside and saying like it's weird because I never found myself in this kind of situation. But I really liked it and I enjoyed it as a perspective, as you say.
I think it was very nice, and I would have loved to be there as well. But I do believe that us trying to go back to our grandma and dig into our own memory of her, but mix it with imagination, going back to her archives, but also wondering who she really was and so on. It was a really cool trigger for us to create Nonna Giada, and also to have this unlimited space in which both reality and imagination have like space to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me that's a way of creation. It's just ideas mixed with reality, memories, things that probably we are curious of, and we just like dig more into there. It's just like trying to find meaning in a past that we were part of, but we were not like the main characters there
No.
because we knew her for a very brief period of her life. And now, well, it's gonna start this week, but there are gonna be two alter egos, which are her granddaughters, that are gonna be like the main characters of the story, and they are gonna be the people who will find out what was going on um, in her life. And that's very random.
That's very random, and as I say again, like it makes me mix up reality and imagination, even in my head, a
Yeah.
little bit, because I feel like since we started digging into our own grandmother's story and also like creating the story of Giada Maria Corsini, there's a lot of questions that have popped up for us, and I feel like we're somehow like molding the past in a way. So there's a part of who we are, like Marta and Blanca, of what we feel, who we are, the questions we have in this precise moment of our lives that are sneaking into the story, and our concerns, and even like, for instance, talking about reality, like the world is changing so fast now, and I feel like during the time that she was alive, things were completely different. So there's a little bit of also like nostalgia of that past,
Yeah.
and mm, a way for us to like try and understand how things that are happening to us nowadays could have been different then,
Yeah.
and what other tools and ways of embracing life and reality they had at that point, which is kind of, we always say that we like to have friends who are older than us, and I think that there's something in common here, which is like, even if it's just a fantasy in our mind or something that we are creating, being able to step into Nonna Giada's shoes or our grandmother's shoes or whoever it is, like
Yeah.
this character, gives us perspective of where we are now and what we're doing and things we are experiencing at the moment.
And for me, there's another key thing that we are doing, and I hope that somewhere our grandma is watching it, is that at that moment, women were not as free. And I know that our grandma and obviously a lot of other women had this creative urge inside them, and they were not able to develop it, and we are able to, and we are doing it. And for me, somehow, being a creative woman and trying to find my way in life and in business and in creativity and in relationships, it's like a little ode to her. And it's like if another generation is taking like her hand and it's like, okay, you are serving us and we are serving you by helping each other and intertwining like both of our lives, which now one is real and the other one is not real anymore. It's just part of a past and just a memory. But there's like something about women
No.
that we carry. Well, there's this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, which is amazing. And it talks about this. Like the stories that go through generations and still have the same power.
Yeah, I feel like this exercise that we're doing, like creating Nonna Giada and mixing everything that we are creating for her story with things that are part of
Yeah.
our grandmother's life and all, at least for me, it's given me more consciousness about how lucky we are, at least in this side of the world where we live,
Yeah.
that as women we are free to have our own money, to create our own careers, to decide about our love life, about our personal life. So there's such an amount of freedom that is we really need to value, because before I believe that there was a power inside of women who were craving for this freedom, and they wanted to have their careers, and they wanted to decide about their love lives, and they wanted to decide about their personal lives, but they couldn't do it. They were constricted by conventions, and that's why I think it's so amazing to see not only women, like all kind of people who break conventions and try to make their own path. That's why I admire people who do this so much. But it's really given me consciousness about how there is, and we also talked about this, and I think there's something in you that has to do with it.
What?
That we discovered that our grandmother was also a Leo.
Yeah.
And
in her marriage certificate,
exactly,
that we found out, which is so beautiful.
Maybe one day you'll get to see it.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's unfinished business for some women, that, and for anyone who's lived in the past.
Yeah.
And then sometimes inside a family, you carry that
lineage.
Yeah, that lineage. And I think there's something about you that has to do with unfinished business from our grandmother. I think that you have developed... No, it's true. I think that you... I mean, it's something that's yours only, and I don't want to take that out from your person, but I think that there's this creativity inside of you, but then there's a wave of power behind it that comes from someone who maybe had it but could never use it, and that might have been her.
Wow.
And even if when we watch the photographs and all, there's something about you in her. I see it in the pose, or in, I don't know.
I like that, because it's, if I had my own urge, but also like a message from the past that is carrying me forward, and I've always felt that. That's why also in my first novel I also explored a grandma.
Yeah.
And I believe there's something in what's not been said through generations, or the unseen, the untold, the unlived. I love all of this.
Same.
And also one thing that I was going to say is that probably the narratives we choose to tell ourselves are the ones who shape us, but also the narratives we are reshaping are giving a new light to our memory and to our past. And I believe that's something pretty powerful as well. And also brands that have like a lot of heritage, now that they are going back to the archives, there's the essence coming out. It's so cool, it's so interesting, it's so real and raw and original. That's why I also, as you know, love Miuccia Prada, because I think that she's a woman who has lived a lot of lives.
Yeah.
She studied to become a mime.
Yeah, she was a mime for a while.
She was a mime. And as you know, when I was living in Milan, one day I dreamt, like very vividly, that she came to me and she told me, Marta, do everything, but find a focus. And that message, that it's reality and imagination, really changed my life. And it's one of the reasons why the Foyer, it's like this. We do everything, which is the creation of a whole world, but the focus is narrative. So it was what you were saying about our grandma, that she appeared in your thoughts and you had the need to talk to her. And what we are talking about, María Pombo and her dad, and generations that are mixing, this is all thanks to narrative in the end.
Yeah. Coming along with this, I remember that when we were like studying and analyzing to create the brand, I came across all of these papers from Jung.
You mean our brand?
Yes.
Yeah.
I came across these papers from Jung where he said that fantasies are facts.
I love this.
And I love that because it's so true, and it has a lot to do with what you were saying. Like, all these narratives that we tell ourselves, everything that we have in our minds, it's a fantasy, but the minute it's in your head, it becomes a fact, because it's a fact that you are creating it in your head, that you are seeing it in your head. And I think that's something that completely reshapes your reality, and it can even reshape reality of people who surround you. And that's why I'm so surprised by the fact that since we started creating Giada Maria Corsini, something in my environment has changed.
As in?
In the sense that all of these narratives that we are creating and therefore consuming as well, they are starting to become part of how I think of my everyday. So this consciousness that I was talking about, so I'm much more aware of the freedom that we have as women. Or for instance, with the spider, which is this hair garment that she used to wear, and that she used to wear to feel seen, and that carried a very strong message that she got from an older woman that she met. So when these narratives are becoming part of my everyday, and they are infused in objects that I have around me and in things that I go back to daily, I kind of live with them and by them. And that, I feel, is changing me in a way, which is weird because we are creating it as well.
I don't think it's weird. I think it's a mirror.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably it's like, since we are creating these narratives inspired by her, she feels seen.
That's a good way of seeing it.
And so she's giving us the same. Like you are saying, that creating these narratives through her life, it's giving you something. Probably she's like, thanking us and giving us this strength or power or creativity or a force that we are feeling within, that it's like this string that we are just like, all the time taking. I feel that it's just a mirror effect.
Possibly.
So probably to close up, this would be a great, scenario, just to say that since we started using reality to empower our imagination, the narratives that we have been creating for our clients or for our own brand really have some kind of magic and some kind of information that are very engaging to everyone because they are universal.
And precisely because they engage with imagination, which is something that we kind of left behind in a way. So things in general now, there's like the magic in things has died a little bit for me.
We cannot say
we cannot say that, but it had died a little bit somehow. There's not that many magic as before, and I feel that infusing your life with imagination and even like creating conversations around things, and I don't know, starting to wonder and be curious about stuff that you had never questioned to yourself before, brings in this magic, which to me is a way of romanticizing your own life as well, which
is very important.
Very important. So yeah, and I think it's romantic, but it's also practical, because as I see it in how we applied this same conception to María Pombo's campaign, it's a very clear way of how using your imagination can also create you something that makes you, I don't know, sell hundreds of products, as it was in this case, or to gain a higher reputation as a creative when you're an influencer or whatever, no? So this is something that we really need to live by and stay true to it.
So I guess that we have to bring back the magic.
Yes.
With narratives, with the romantic side of life, and with creativity and a part of truth.
With sorry, but it's what we always call see-through.
Exactly. So thank you one more day for being here with us in this conversation, and we hope to see you very soon.
We will leave below the links to all the books and movies that we have mentioned during the podcast. Thank you.